Hi, everybody, it's Robbie. Welcome back to Miscellaneous Candor. Frank, honest, and otherwise outspoken. This week, we bring back our well known special guest host, Greg. So, Greg is on the line with myself and Steven. We talk a lot about, ironically, there's a lot of celebrity conversation this week, but not in the way that you think. So, definitely tune in and listen. We do talk more about the AI dolls. If you listened before, you know what that means. And then we get pretty serious about deepfakes and how they can impact people's personal lives. And we talk about our perspectives on that. We also talk a bit about AI businesses and valuations. We go hard in the paint on that subject. Yes, you will understand why I laughed when I said that. But let me not waste any time. Let's get to it. So tune in, subscribe, and listen. Here we go. Welcome back, everybody. This is Robbie from Miscellaneous Candor. Frank, honest, and otherwise outspoken. Voice is a little bit scratchy this morning, so this will be an interesting audio tenant that carries throughout this podcast. But looking forward to our conversation this morning. We brought back Greg, who is our recurring special guest host. Steven, are you there?
Hello, my friends. It is I, Stephen Kennedy, your board certified atheist at your service, at Robbie's service, whenever she decides she's ready to talk about these topics.
Okay,
And
Steven.
I just want to note
And
that Robbie's
Greg.
raspy voice is wonderful. It's a sign that she's out having a good time. She's got a
Yeah.
social life, unlike some other people on this podcast who go to bed at 8:30.
I you know what? I'd like to hear more about Robbie's adventures last night.
Oh my God. Okay, we will talk about
I
that
I think
later.
Greg would too, right? I mean, we
Yes.
She's
are
out
interested.
ketamine with Elon Musk.
Everyone knows that that's never going to happen. Okay, here we
Oh,
go.
sorry. Yeah, right. I didn't,
All right,
I didn't-
so guys, podcast. I have to say, I did not listen to any. I did listen to a new podcast. I'm not going to go into the details of it just because I don't really want to talk about all the details, but it's called Media Touch Podcast. So it was the number one podcast on Apple Media. And so I listened to that. They were talking about a lot of current events, a lot of political things. But it's pretty interesting because they go super hard. Like they go super hard in the paint. You can tell that they're not supportive of our current administration. But it was
What?
interesting. I've never heard a podcast
You
that way,
know, I
and it's number one. But I want to hear from you guys in terms of what you listen to, because we're not talking a lot about that this week.
well, first of all, I've never heard the phrase deep in the paint, so I find that fascinating.
Oh,
And
that
I think
means,
I'm going to use that from now on.
do you want to know what it means?
You've
Yes,
never
I
heard
Hard.
mean,
It's
deep in
hard in the
the paint
paint.
before?
hard in the paint. Okay.
You can know it's deep in the
I've
paint
never
too.
heard that before. I like it though.
Oh yeah, people can say deep in the paint too, but I know hard in the paint. Maybe that's just cultural.
Cool.
But
I'm going to
essentially,
use
it's a
that every day
basketball
now.
phrase. Yeah, use it.
So if can you use that while having sex too? Like, oh, let's go deep in the paint.
I probably wouldn't. I don't think that women would particularly like that, but essentially,
Okay.
it is a colloquial phrase meaning it's around basketball, and it means that you go like you're driving into the paint of where the basket is. You go hard. You're just
Okay.
driving in because some people don't do that, and it also too can be somewhat of like a shade convert, a little bit of a shady comment if you're constantly just doing what is it, 3 pointers because you're not going hard in the paint. So, but it means
Okay.
like going hard, going all in, you know, just not no mercy. No mercy. But
Yeah.
okay,
You know who's
can we
going
talk
deep in
about
the
what
paint right now?
you
I've
guys,
got
hello. Come
hello,
on,
What?
guys.
Robbie.
Come
Let
on.
Greg finish his thought.
Yeah,
Come on.
Oh my
I have a
God, here we go
squirrel.
again.
There's a squirrel outside my window going deep in the paint into the bird feeder, and it is upsetting me.
Okay, this is not a serious conversation. Okay,
Okay.
we have
Yeah.
wasted about 15 minutes talking about Heart of the Fate. I'm
My
sorry,
apologies.
bored.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Okay. Did you guys
So
listen to any that was funny though? Did you guys listen to any podcasts this week?
But
yeah,
we're being
I can
serious, right?
go.
So only serious podcast.
Yes, we're being serious.
But
Well, any
Steven's
podcast that
podcast,
Any
you found
podcast.
interesting or not interesting, anything you want to talk about. But I can go. I can go first. So in the past, I expressed my dislike for a podcast by Jeff Daniels, who's an actor, and clearly he thinks he's God's gift to gab because he's a monologue and he just goes on and on these boring stories that really I think I'm going to listen to when I can't fall asleep at night, and it just knocks you out. So I thought to myself, let me listen to a podcast of another celebrity that I really hate and I find annoying and see what I think of their content. I thought, what if I'm just biased about Jeff Daniels just because I don't like him as an actor and whatever. So
For the record, Jeff Daniels, if you're ever listening to this podcast, I have nothing against you, and neither does the podcast. This is a personal opinion, Stephen Kennedy. Okay,
it's a personal
continue.
vendetta. Jeff Daniels.
Personal,
Um,
personal. Nothing to do
no,
with
but Jeff
the
Daniels,
business as a whole.
If you are listening to this, I'm a native Michigander, and I would love to have you on our podcast, and we can talk this out. We can hug it out. We can chat about how your podcast needs improvement, and I can give you guidance. But anyways, I digress.
why do you dislike?
So I listened to why do I dislike Jeff Daniels?
I'm just curious.
Because I
I don't
feel
really have,
like
you know. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I just I think I don't like actors that think they are more than they are actually worth, and then just think anything they're gonna say is gonna be whiskey going down my smooth whiskey going down someone's throat. You know what I mean? It's he's feeding us really boring content, but he thinks, listen, I'm suave, I'm Jeff Daniels.
So, what was the other podcast that you listened to from the celebrity that you didn't
I
enjoy?
listen to so another celebrity that I really don't like is Dax Shepard. I just find him very annoying, and he he just gets under my skin. So I listen to his podcast. It's called Armchair Expert. Uh and I was surprisingly very engaged with the content because what he um he really just talks about the human psyche and how humans in general are just a mess. And he kind of gets under those layers and tries to explore what's going through people's minds. He has he has interesting guests. He also has celebrity guests, which I found boring. So those I was like, nah, I didn't even finish those. But the other ones, he did have some interesting guests. For example, he had a homicide prosecutor on one time, and they were talking about the different murders and kind of their psyche. So it was that kind of content, and yeah, it's just about getting under the layers of how humans think and process information and how they react. So I really liked it. I'm definitely gonna stay on it.
Okay, so he's married to one of my favorite actresses of all time,
Who is from?
Kristen Bell.
No, I said
Nobody
who
won't.
is from? Where?
I don't know where she's from. I just know.
Michigan.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, but I love her. Nobody Wants This, the recent one, Veronica Mars, The Good
Yeah.
Place. The Good Place was so amazing. She was in Frozen. Gossip Girls, Bad Moms, one of my favorite when I was like raising Jillian. That show
Oh,
was
that's
that
a
movie
great
was
movie.
amazing movie. It
Yeah.
was like, I understand that. I understand that. Anyway, I love Kristen Bell. So
I'm not,
I have to tell you the fact that you don't like Dax Shepard. Dax, FYI, you are on my team just because your wife is the bomb.
I don't like her anymore. Actually, I did during the Veronica Mars days, but now she's just annoying. She's just kind of hams it up on screen. It's a bit
Mm.
much. But
But I'm glad that you liked his
listen, I think
podcast.
all of us teenage boys watched her in Veronica Mars just 'cause she was fucking hot, right? I mean, that's why we all. Am I wrong, Greg?
No, you are correct.
Thank you.
You are correct. But what I will say is that what I find, I just have to go back to the Jeff Daniels thing for a hot second. The rest of his movies, whatever. But the 1994 classic, a film, not even just a movie, a film, Dumb and Dumber,
Yes.
is
Okay.
outstanding. But
Yes.
that's
Yes.
about the
Yes.
seriousness extent that I would take him.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay,
That
so
was
like the
probably my
podcast
favorite movie of
about
his.
you like the podcast about the fact that he was dealing with the that didn't sound good. Dealing with the the human psyche. Um and then Greg, you said you like Jeff Daniels and Dumber and Dumber. Okay, so was there any would you listen to his podcast again? Would you listen to Dak Shepard podcast again? Because clearly you won't listen to Jeff Daniels podcast anymore.
Absolutely, I would. I
Wow,
liked
okay.
the content. I liked the kind of guests he was inviting, and I liked the questions that he was asking to discover and talk about people. Um, and it kind of I think it's because it connects back to my idea that humans at the very core level are just animals, and we try to act more sophisticated, more high level, but we're really not, because when it comes down to it, you see what's going on around the world, right?
Um I don't necessarily agree with that, but okay, Greg.
I mean, we're acting sophisticated on this podcast right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not beating each other up on the podcast.
No.
Yeah.
Um,
But Greg, what did you listen to? You said you like
yeah,
business podcast?
so because
Business.
I am a very serious cerebral person pretending to not be a wild animal, I listen to uh, I listen to this podcast called The Knowledge Project all the time. I've been
Oh,
listening to that for a long time with Shane Parrish. He's a Canadian.
okay.
Soon we won't be able to actually receive any Canadian content here, or vice versa. But for now, you can still get Canadian podcasts here in
Wait,
America.
what? Are you okay, let's
Oh, you
not.
didn't hear about that?
No, wait, what? What are you talking about?
I'm totally making a political
Oh,
point.
okay. Okay. Okay, so go on.
I
What
was gonna.
about this podcast?
There was two paths I could have just taken right now. One was not serious, Greg, uh, to just start making some real shit up, and the other was just to tell you I was only kidding. So,
Okay. So what
um,
about this
so
knowledge
he had this
project? What is
guy
it?
on. So some of them are pretty good. Mostly they're all quite good, but this one was really interesting. And he had this guy who has an air filter company, David
Mhm,
Heacock, who's the founder and CEO of FilterBuy,
mhm.
um, which is a
You mean
brand.
the one that you put on your faucet?
They're more air filters,
Oh, okay, that's Filter
so
Buddy.
like
Sorry,
HVAC
go on.
filters.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it was just an awesome business podcast. I mean, it's long form; it's an hour and 40 minutes, I think,
Mhm.
but he's just outstanding. And he talks about, I think some of the biggest takeaways were for me that he really has this philosophy that direct to consumer companies are just a brand, and they're not really any different than just a brand that just is doing some e-commerce.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was kind of cool. And that all, pretty much their biggest cost is logistics and distribution. Um, Everything else is actually, manufacturing. Once they got that fixed cost set up, is pretty much just there, right? And you can kind of amortize that over time. But what hits their margins the most is really just logistics. Um, and so they've kind of figured out a way to do that really well and work with their retail partners on that. So, yeah, so I like that one a lot. David Heacock.
Wow. Okay. David Heacock, The Knowledge Project. I definitely will check that out only because, I have a soft spot for business and understanding just the structure of how all of those things go and happen. So that seems pretty interesting.
I'm sorry,
I
did
thought
you
you were
say his name is David Eacock or
gonna say,
David Heacock?
uh, he, like HEA, and
I
then
see.
cock.
Okay. Oh God. Okay. Well, I think that we will get to that part of the
I just have
conversation
one.
soon enough.
I just have one question here. You know, I do you think when he was growing up, he went through shit with the kids at school?
Oh,
Of course he
100%.
did. That's like a non-conversation.
So
I
my question is, why wouldn't as a responsible parent, isn't it a parent's responsibility to say, "Hey, my last name is Cock. Let me change my last name so my kid doesn't go through hell, or change my child's last name so he doesn't go through hell when he's with his classmates."
You don't know what the legacy of the family name is. You don't know how it came up at the point when it did come up. Maybe people weren't teasing people. There's all kinds of things. Maybe
it
Cock
doesn't,
meant a
I mean,
chicken versus an actual penis. We don't
my
know.
so I somewhat relatedly, I had a friend in high school whose last name was Hickok, and he actually is, of all things, he's actually a big muckety muck now in the PR world at some big PR firm. He's like an SVP, and you would
Uh-huh.
think that, like, if you were going to struggle a little bit because of your last name, it wouldn't really matter if you were like an engineer, but in PR where everything's optics and all that,
Yeah.
it's kind of ironic, I guess.
Yeah.
But he did not change his name. We just called him. I mean, we were friends with him. We didn't rag on him too bad. We actually, I think he kind of liked it. He leaned into his cock.
See?
Uh,
Okay,
yeah.
this is a perfect transition for our conversation around AI and what we had talked about last week when we talked about these AI sex dolls. But before we go back into AI, I do have to say there's a couple things I want to say quickly about AI. This conversation that I thought was pretty interesting is the fact that right now the San Francisco Bay Area has more than half of the total investments for current VC deals, venture capital deals, is bolstered by AI. And that is by EY. I just thought that that is so crazy. It totally makes sense. But I also want to be clear about the fact that as much as people like to shitpost California and talk about there's nothing happening here and it's blowing up. If you have more than it looks like, even if I look at this graph here, like about 80, 60 to 70% of the VC deals going into AI, few of those are going to hit. And that just speaks to the growth and the huge value engine that is being created in California right now. But I just thought that was really interesting. I don't know if you guys wanted to say anything about that before we keep going, but I need to make that comment.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable and it's a good thing. However, I don't like the idea that it's also going to bolster valuations. Like it always, these things always just give astronomical, absurd valuations to these companies.
It does, but there's always one or two that hit, and
Yeah.
those one or two become the ones that are basically running the world right now. The Google, the Facebook, the Amazon, right? All you need is one or two. And I just think that it's amazing just how many are being invested in. Greg, what's your take on it? I know you have some because you are like a really complex, cerebral, business minded person.
I mean, I'm surprised it's not way more than half.
Well, no,
Like,
it is. It's about 70, 80%.
yeah, I mean, from what I see out there, if you don't have AI in your pitch deck, you're not even getting meetings. Um, and I would say that the valuations are certainly higher, though. So while there's a ton of money going into it, everybody's ponying up on their term sheets, to 10, 12x on early rounds from what I've seen and heard. So it also kind of begs the question of like, are you breeding the next round of potential zombie companies when this whole thing shakes out? And you have a bunch of companies out there that raised an early valuation, but they were just wrappers around some large language model or a series of large language models, and they don't have that much IP themselves on there. And suddenly it's, well, cool, you're an interesting wrapper around a commoditized large language model. You don't really have any IP, so then your valuation sucks, even if you have customers.
And sorry,
Greg,
go ahead, Robbie.
no, I was just gonna say, Greg, I just really like that perspective just because of the fact that you actually been out there raising money. Audience, yes. Greg has raised money for multiple companies. So your perspective is different. I have one more question before Stephen, I pass it on to you. But do you think though, given what you just stated, have you seen in the marketplace, because you also too are someone who gets a lot of incoming deal flow just because you have been out there raising money, etc. Do you see that there are some that are really more than just a wrapper or commoditized and have some real IPs that you're like, wow, this is pretty interesting?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Definitely, because the really, if you've got true engineers out there who really like building cool stuff, they know what I just talked about is true if they have any business sense. I mean, and a lot of them don't, but there's, some of them also though, they're almost I know engineers who basically would scoff at the notion of just putting a wrapper around an LLM that's out there, right? Because they would look at that like, I'm not doing anything really creative, cool, or challenging. Like they if anything, they kind of look down their nose at people that do, right? I know guys who will do stuff like that just as a fun side project to
Hmm.
create like a cool to do app, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for them and their family. Um, but yeah, I think there's definitely people out there using PyCharm and which is like what a lot of the large language models are actually built with, and then some of the open source stuff for the large language models, and then a bunch of Python, complex code on top of that. That's actually really where their IP is.
Okay. Okay, Stephen, what were you gonna ask or say?
It slipped my mind. I just I just got enthralled by Greg just going so hard into the paint, you know.
Deep in the paint, being
In the paint,
serious.
deep in the paint. Sorry.
No, he knows his when it comes to startup investing and what's out there right now. He's like right in it, which I think is amazing for this conversation in particular. Um, so lot to learn.
So the just to clarify for the audience, we're talking about enablement of AI on both the AI enabled products, but also on the other side, AI usage internally. So investors are going to want to see usage of AI from an efficiency perspective internally that the company is using for efficiency, but also accuracy. And then also on the product side as well for their consumers to have AI enabled products.
And two, they're going to want to see that they want to see a clear path of some sort of revenue and particularly profitability, and is it viable? Because gone are the days of I can say I'm an AI company just because maybe I have some data analytics, or maybe I have a chatbot, or maybe I'm using ChatGPT and then I put a brand on it and I say that it's an AI product. And
Yeah.
that was how things were happening in the beginning, but that's not how things are happening now, which is why I brought up the point about so recently there's so many AI deals that are being invested in California right now, because it means that those deals that are being invested in are past the initial ones
Mm.
where we were just wrapping GPT in something and saying this
Yeah.
is an AI product. People are going a bit deeper, and it speaks to the potential growth and burgeoning business engine that's happening in California that I don't believe a lot of people are really talking about. They talk about it, but not in this way. So that's why I wanted to bring it up.
That's a great point. Because AI is becoming more sophisticated, it's requiring us to become more knowledgeable about AI, and as a result, seeing through the bullshit. And
Yes.
I think we've all seen a bunch of bullshit AI packages out there.
Speaking of AI bullshit, Steven, did we want to talk about?
Wait,
Oh,
hold on. Before we talk about the sex dolls,
ah, Greg, you listened to our last episode.
I did. I did.
Very much
I listened to
appreciated.
all of these podcasts. I listened to them all on 1.25. And it's not just our podcast; it's basically all podcasts now. And I'm kind of curious of how many people out there listen to this podcast on 1.25 or 1.5, um, because we're reasonably fast paced against some of the others. Um, but I do want to come back to the sex doll AI, sort of where those two things meet. Not for any personal interest, of course, but
No, of course not.
Oh
Of
God,
course not. Of
but
please!
course not.
I hope not.
before we do, though, on a serious note, so one thing that I think is going to hold back the wider deployment, to Stephen's point, on corporate usage or some type of enterprise, company usage, right, and not just individual use, um, is, especially on the agentic side, is, how do I haven't seen yet a good way of, and I'm sure some brilliant guys out there and gals have thought of this at a software company, and I just haven't seen it. But I have not seen how you actually can show a buying team after, say, a POC, that here's how the thing behaved, and here's where we know it got it right, and here's 3% of those instances where we think it hallucinated a little bit and misled your customer, Mr. Client, um, because I think they would know that if there was some feedback from the client's customers, right? That what the hell is this bot talking about, right? Um, or their partners. But otherwise, I'm not sure how you know. Am I explaining my thoughts on this well?
No.
Okay.
I got a little lost too. So are you
Please,
saying
please
that? Let me
go
see if I can
deep into the paint.
translate.
So let me get deeper into the paint here.
Yeah,
Well, wait,
So
let me see
let's
if I
do
can
it.
translate just for our
yeah,
audience. Are you saying that, given the fact that there is a widely known understanding that agentic large language models, rappers, etc., all of that stuff can hallucinate. What happens if you're with a sex doll and it says something crazy and it's a hallucination,
oh, that's a
but you
bad
don't?
example. We hope it says something crazy, and that's a bad use case.
Okay, so this is not what you're talking about because that's how
No,
I
I'm
understand it.
I'm curious about this topic now, Robbie. What's going on?
No, I'm saying no, I'm
see,
saying that I'm not talking purely about the fact that AI does hallucinate. Like even I had a recent instance too internally where I was using AI and I think that it hallucinated on some of the answers that I was asking about a particular
Hmm.
product. Right? And you can see that sometimes you have to check it because you can ask it to do things and it sounds perfect and great. But then if you don't go out there and verify it, or if there, even sometimes if there's a source, it's like, is this true, or did you just decide that because you asked this question and it needed to give you an answer, it was
okay.
going to give you an answer? That's
Yeah.
what I mean.
So let me distinguish between that use case. Let me give you an example that might be much more helpful. Like when
Okay.
I say that's you as a business user at a company using an LLM to produce some type of content, and it's on you to sanity check that content,
Yeah,
right?
but I'm saying with a sex doll, can you really sanity check that? I don't
You
think you
can't, and
can.
that's the point.
That's
So
the
if you
point.
have,
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. So I am understanding you.
yeah, you are. So I don't know how you solve that. I mean, I have this problem as an operator right now where I want to deploy some type of LLM driven call bot, not for any sales or marketing, but actually for an operational purpose to sort of close the loop of a workflow, right, with an external party. But because these external parties are just people out there, they're just consumers. um, I would never know that how that call really went, right?
Mhm.
Unless that company decided to record and store all those things and then run
Yeah.
some LLM on top of it that like looks for, semantic shit gone sideways, to put it
Yeah.
crudely. So yeah, anyway, that's the last thing I wanted to say on that.
And we cross some ethical boundaries there too, right? But again, I
Yeah.
guess if you are signing off on purchasing this AI enabled sex doll, you are signing away your rights to that data. Now, apparently, this one company that I was talking about last time, you can press a button on the doll and it erases data. But there's a lot of gray area there, as to I'm curious to see the fine print on that.
Yeah,
Um,
erases data where
yeah, yeah.
based on the
There's a
doll.
lot of gray area that I'd love to read up on the fine print. Greg, if you get one of these dolls, please let me know. I'm
I
curious.
will. I will.
I
We
do.
got.
Do you know
Please
anyone?
don't. If either one of you get one of these dolls, please do not let me know. I
I
do
think
not
one of
want
us
to know.
should, just for the sake of this
Oh my
podcast.
God, this is
How
disgusting.
much are they again?
Oh,
Around $2,200.
oh
No,
my
I
Around
can't do
twenty two
that.
hundred
goodness.
bucks.
If I'm going to spend $2,200, that's a good way towards the mountain bike I want. So
Do you? So I was. Do you know? I was telling Robbie last time that I don't know anyone, and guys talk, right? Guy friends, they talk. They're close. They're. If I had a guy friend that had a sex doll, they would. I would know if it's a
yeah,
close friend.
yeah.
Do you know anyone that has a sex doll?
No, I had got some freaky friends, but none of them uh, have sex dolls now.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm
God.
I'm curious to find the people in that market.
I mean,
Why? I want to understand what's going on
Well, I
in their
think that
mind.
you should start an investigation, dig into that, and you can do your own special mini podcast about that.
Why do you always sideline my favorite conversations like
why are you
that?
such a prude, Robbie?
So, because I'm not interested in knowing who is
You
using a
know, Greg, let me tell you something. Whenever I
oh.
have an interesting idea, Robbie's on air. She's like, "That's a great idea for a mini podcast that you can do." I thought we're a team, Robbie. I thought we're a
We are
team.
a team. It
I
still
don't
would
feel
be
like it
under our.
sometimes. You hurt my feelings.
Oh my goodness. But I gave you so I think that you're great. You push the envelope. You definitely make this podcast a great podcast in terms of our contrary views. And so, I think this is good, but we're not always going to disagree. We're not always going to agree. We know
Can I
But
this.
just
why do you
interject
think?
Yes, Greg.
with a creative idea? Like, so
Yeah.
can you get when you get a little more sophisticated with this podcast and like the editorial? I'd like to see you like.
Damn. Ouch.
Well, I don't mean that. I mean it's quite good. I actually genuinely like listening to it when I'm not on it.
It's not supposed
Um,
to be sophisticated. That's the point. That's why it's called
no, no, no. I
miscellaneous
meant like I
candor.
meant. Hear me out. Hear me out. I
Yeah.
meant
Hear me.
more with we're inserting other like external content very cleverly into the pod, right? Because what I would have loved to have in my mind, what I just heard when you said that Stephen Kennedy is wonderful, I had that like that old song like I think you're wonderful.
Exactly.
And I'd
Thank
love
you.
for you to
Thank
like
you,
edit
Greg.
this thing where you suddenly pause and you play that old song. That's my creative
Oh,
idea.
okay. Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I think that's
interesting.
like a post-production conversation we can have, like not on the podcast, but I definitely think that's a good idea. Um, Steven, I want to go back to this AI sex stuff because you want to talk about it today. So I think there was something in addition to the sex dolls. Am I right or am I wrong,
Yeah, just a
Steven?
second. 1 second. I want to play some. Dude, I'm. What's so
What is
funny?
that? Oh,
Why are
it's
you
like
laughing
in
at me?
real time
I get.
pivoting.
I was
Because that was such a long
to
pause. Go on.
To Greg's point to
In
Greg's
real
point.
time
I
pivoting.
just wanted to play something before as we get into this conversation.
Uh, understand what this is about.
I think he's getting all sexy time with that song. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. See, there you go, Robbie. If you can kind of edit this and have that more be like
Okay,
it's like what's the type of music called where you have it in between? It's
we're
bumper.
talking a little bit about the structure of the podcast on the
Yeah, that's a good
podcast.
point.
So can we keep on this?
Oh,
This
you can
That
yeah.
edit this out though, can't you?
yeah, we can
No,
talk about
let's
it.
let's talk about that at another time. So that was a good in real time pivot. Steven, what do we
Yeah,
want to talk about?
yeah. So, in the same line of thought, we're talking about AI and sex. And I think Greg appreciated my transition music there. Um,
I did.
so thank you. There are some lawmakers in Minnesota that are seeking to enact a law where uh, AI companies like apps would not be able to include the feature that allows users to make AI sex fake videos or images. So they wouldn't be able to take my face and put it on a man with a super like a 20-inch penis having sex with a woman. They wouldn't be able to make a video like that. So now there are a lot of different layers to this. Um, I'm not saying that I don't have a 20-inch, but I'm just saying these are the kinds of things that would be prevented. um, so it's an interesting thing because number one, okay, the state of Minnesota, suppose they were able to prevent AI companies from uh, including this feature. So basically, they would be banned from including this technology in their AI offerings to users. So if I'm using an app, I would not be able to in the state of by a Minnesota company. Sorry, a Minnesota company that's creating this app, if I'm using their app to create um, AI videos or AI images, I would not be able to create a fake sex image with someone's face on it that I know. I wouldn't be able to take Greg's face and put it on a sex video. Um, now, suppose that happens, okay?
Hmm.
What what is that really going to prevent, right? I can just use an app from a different state or a different country. So it would really require this to be enacted across the board. Do I think it's a great effort? Yes, I do, because if you think about all the sexual harassment that occurs, all the bullying that occurs because of these videos, and these are getting very sophisticated. The technology is getting it's improving every day, right? So these videos are becoming so real that, I think, Greg and I can agree that back in the day, maybe just even a couple years ago, you could tell when there was a fake video, right? You could tell when it was someone's fake face put on a fake video or fake image. These days, you cannot tell. It is so real. So if you want to, if a guy gets rejected by a girl at school, he can put her face on in a video and start sharing it, and people will believe it. This girl is going to get bullied. This leads to all sorts of mental trauma. Even kids commit suicide because of bullying, right? It's
Yeah.
this kind of thing that causes it. So do I think it's a great effort? Yes, I do. But I think if it's going to happen, it's got to happen at a much larger scale. It's got to be in unison across the world. But how do you police that? How do you even it's hard to police it because you've got intelligent people using very using open source AI to create their own little apps, their own little technology, right? So it's becoming more difficult to police it as well.
I have so many, um, I have so much to say about this, but I want to try to keep it short too because I know we have another topic that we want to talk about. Oh, goodness.
I
Okay.
do have a thought
So
on that, though,
I do.
Robbie.
I know I have. I just want to get mine out, and then you guys can.
Oh, I thought you were saying you just were moving on to a different topic. I thought.
No, not at all. No, not at all. Not at
But
all.
but
I'm
that
trying
see,
to.
Greg, these kinds of things do happen where
They
Robbie's
do.
like,
Yeah,
They
some
do.
Robbie's
people
right.
They're not
just
in
have
this
a
one.
hard time paying attention and staying on, you know.
No, no, not in this case. I have a lot to say. I'm trying to think about how I can cull down what I have to say so that I can get my points and not be too verbose. But
Or
okay,
just
so
play the
first
hold
and
music.
foremost,
Dum, ba-da-da-dum, bum,
first
bum.
and foremost, I agree with you, Stephen. I know Australia recently, as a country, just passed the fact that kids cannot have a phone or social media before the age of 16, right?
Oh wow,
They
that's
did that
amazing.
as a country. So
Wow.
from that perspective, in terms of what you're talking about for sweeping changes, that's the way you do it. Like that's the only thing that you could do. But even then, if you have people coming in from out of the country, right? How do you police that?
Mm,
So, but that's like a first step. I think the states are trying to do something because they feel like there's nothing that they can do, and this is a way for at least them to start a step towards controlling some of this AI bullying and deep fake and creating like these different AI images that are not real but are detrimental to kids and adults, etc. And
mm,
you're right. You're right. There's stuff that's out there, and I think people have been so focused on the fact that AI is so dangerous when it comes to things like this, and it's so easily captured, and you can just go out there and you can create this very simply and easy, but you do need to learn these AI tools. So that's another thing too. Like for you to do this, there's still tools that you need to learn how to do to be able to create these things.
yep.
They're easy, but you do need to learn them. So you have to have somebody who has that type of fortitude who wants to do that. Secondly,
But think
I would
about 5 years down the line. It's going to become a lot easier.
But here's my point. It's always been easy to do this. And this is what I'm going to say. We have always had tools like this. We've had tools like Photoshop. We've had tools like a lot of these different visual effects types of tools that have been put out to um, the public, particularly if you're a graphic designer or you're somebody in the arts world or you're somebody that's working computer animation. There's things called compositing and there's things called different types of layering that you can do where you can basically put another image in a background or insert, and we've seen these on movies. We've seen these types of things where they literally have created cities, states, different movements, people doing different things when they're not, so that they didn't have to bring in stuntmen because it was too dangerous. We've seen these types of things.
Mm,
What we haven't seen is the operationalization of violence and tendencies and aggression of creating these types of images. And I believe that social media has played a huge part in that, as well as the whole like deep fake, let me do this so I can, win some sort of political race or I can convince something. But these types of scenarios have been there before and you have been able to create it, but the intent has changed. And I don't know really how to go about that. I think that we're trying to do it with laws, but a lot of it has to do with, for lack of a better term, our change of heart and how we're going to look at this and really dumping a lot of the things that we use for the purposes that we use them. I understand a lot of people use Instagram for work. And I also too understand you can recurate your Instagram feed if you want to. Like mine, when I do go on there now, it's just like recipes and what is it?
mm,
Workout stuff. But I have to be cognizant of that. Like I have to be
yeah,
conscious that I don't, if I click on something else,
yeah,
that I don't keep going down a rabbit hole because that'll change my feed.
yeah.
And
Or
that,
you have to be conscious about
yes,
not clicking like on something that you find entertaining and
yes,
makes again.
yes, yes. So it's really going to take a lot of focus on an individual level that gradually becomes a larger consensus when I think about this. But I don't
But
know. What do
that
you
goes
guys
back. You're
think?
you're putting the responsibility on individuals, and we're
I'm
animals.
not
We
saying
are
that. I'm
animals.
not. No, I know that that's what you are always. We're animals. Blah blah blah. Yes, that's true. But there's also choices that you can make. I'm not saying that it's easy. And I'm not saying it's going to happen in 5 seconds. I'm not saying it's going to happen at all. I'm just saying that when you think about and you deconstruct these types of things, ultimately, this is what it does come down to. Greg, you have been super silent.
Greg, are you
Uh,
washing lettuce?
no, I'm being very quiet. Um, I am
Greg's
thinking.
sorry, go ahead.
Uh, I mean,
Are
I
you
think
are you in
some
a
of this
bubble
comes
bath right
down to
now?
so the point that you make there, Robbie, about tools have existed for decades to make some type of deep fake, but now it's just that it's going to be at a scale. I mean, to me, it seems like, you know, statutes related to defamation exist for a reason and did a pretty good job at keeping stuff like a lid on things like that pre internet, pre scale. Um, I don't, unfortunately, it seems like that wouldn't really prevent this because there's a total lack of enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there was that poor girl in New Jersey. I think it was a girl in New Jersey did this happen to, or a series of girls in New Jersey, where some boys in the high school were making deep fakes of them. I have to go look at where this was, but a New Jersey House rep member was proposing, he was really taking action to propose some legislation nationally that dealt with this, at least for kids or minors. Um, but I don't know. I mean, anything that gets
It's a
done.
lot.
What's the name of the thing that the law that allows Facebook and all them to not be subject? It's like for you know what I'm talking about? Oh, what is it?
Oh my God. Oh, yes, and I can't remember it right now. Steven, do you know it?
No, no, I don't know.
But it's
Oh,
where they're
they're
not
not liable.
they're not liable. Oh, what is it
Hmm.
I know.
called?
Um, I know. Me too. I'm doing the same thing. I can't remember.
Hold on, the internet's coming to our rescue. Section 230, the Communications Decency.
Yes. Yes. Section 230. Section
So,
230.
it doesn't seem like anybody in Congress wants to do anything to reform this. Every time they start trying, now these companies have so much goddamn money.
Mm-hmm.
They own these politicians, and I know I'm not supposed to be getting political, but that's not even political. That's more business. Like
Yeah.
they just do. So, you know, until somebody gets a spine in the
Yeah.
government.
It's kind of what I'm saying.
Well,
It's like
to
on
your,
people to change. Like it's a uh,
I mean, that's a great point, Greg. Right. So there's people are getting paid left and right. There's very little reason. Very little stimuli to really to kind of motivate people to make a change here. People are making money. Look, you've got your stockholders, right? You've got your so they don't want these companies that they're invested in to be held accountable. You've got people making these AI companies that are making a lot of money. You've got politicians that are being lobbied. You've got politicians that are getting money off of from these companies that are doing this to stay away, right? That's a very valid point. So it's a very tough situation to try to make a change here.
yeah. I know. And unfortunately, wow. This is just such a huge topic, Stephen. I'm glad you brought this up. I didn't it's just
Robbie,
sometimes it's overwhelming.
I thought, you know what, let's get deep into the paint today.
You really love this. You love that
I
saying.
love
You're
it.
not going to stop saying it. I love it. Well, guys, we actually have to end because we have a few people on
Oh,
here with a hard stop. Greg, I know we were going to talk about some things that you really do have some expertise in, but we will bring you back.
But we can't because of the
Uh,
hard stop is because I need to be a good parent.
yes, I
So,
said we will bring
so
you back. We
overrated.
will bring you
This
back.
is
We will
why I
bring you
don't
back.
have kids.
yeah.
Um, kids are great. It's like when somebody said something, I was listening to one podcast and he said, kids are amazing and horrible at the same time. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true.
This is, let me. Every
But
friend of mine
okay.
that has children, they aged about 10 years in 1 year, and that's where I say no, thank you.
It all
Yeah.
depends. But you know what? I will say there is nothing like it, and it changes who you are from the inside out. And I would never change being a mom. Never. Never, never, never.
Robbie's
Okay,
an
so
outstanding mom. I just want to give her a plug. I want to
aw,
plug
thank
Robbie's
you.
outstanding mothering, parenting. She's very successful by any measure of having a wonderful human being that she is turned into right
And
now.
I think that would be a great mini podcast for Robbie to.
Maybe I'll do it. All right, everybody. That's a great note to end on. Thank you for listening. Steven.
Thank you, my friends. It is I, Stephen Kennedy, board certified atheist at Robbie's service. Greg, thank you very much for joining us. Your insight was phenomenal.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun as always.
All right, everyone. Have a wonderful week.